Greetings, fellow explorers. I'm Richard Garriott, president of the Explorers Club, and welcome to this year's final Fireside Chat. And let's dive right in with the summary of our most recent board meeting. First and foremost on the list is the Explorers Club annual dinner, now scheduled for April 23rd of 2022. That's right, after a long hiatus, so we've missed 2 years due to COVID. We are scheduled to have it on April 23rd, as I mentioned, at the Glass House facility at Hudson Yards. We have to celebrate not only our 2022 awardees, but we'll have 2021 awardees and even the 2020 awardees who never got to receive their accolades in person to recognize this year. And so instead of lengthening the dinner, which we had already received plenty of feedback about how our dinners had become, if anything, too long, we're actually going to move the awardee speeches to earlier in the day, where we're going to give all of the awardees a chance to make presentations to an audience, have it recorded and presumably broadcast, and that will leave the dinner as a place where we can bring them all on stage and recognize them, but then have a much tighter total agenda for the dinner itself. The second issue we discussed at the board meeting was the second year of our Explorers Club 50 program. For those of you who don't know, our Explorers Club 50, the first year was an incredible success. Not only was it much beloved by our membership, but also all of our sponsors. And of course, to those awardees who are now all members of our fellowship, this has represented an incredible opportunity for them. In fact, there are numerous examples as how being recognized as one of the Explorers Club 50 has already made a significant difference in many of their careers. And so many of you, thankfully, submitted proposals or names for us to consider in our second group. Those selections have been made, and the second group of honorees will be released. They'll be introduced in January in a book similar to our first book. And by the way, again, I want to double down on mentioning that this has been probably one of our most successful initiatives as a club, at least in my memory, from a wide variety of angles, including and importantly, finding sponsorship to help lift these members and the club itself. We're also looking again to hold another global exploration conference this summer, the summer of 2022, with our partners in Portugal. The first two were great success, and we believe we can continue to push this to ever higher levels for the club and our membership. Another item we dealt with at the board meeting was the Board of Trustees. You probably heard me discuss on an earlier Fireside Chat that we did already, with your help, membership help, pass a new bylaw that allowed a Board of Trustees, and the team was then there working on a policy outline that the board reviewed. And at least for the initial set of policies for the Board of Trustees, that has been resoundingly approved. I'm sure that we will refine that over the next few quarters as we bring people on and begin to see the Board of Trustees in action. I'm sure we'll make refinements over time. As usual, another hot topic for our board meeting was development. And despite the challenges of that we're still coming out of COVID this year, we actually had quite a few successes. A lot of our programs, from Oceans Week, Pathfinders, Famous First, Legacy Society, those sorts of things, all have done very well. As well as our relationships with our primary sponsors, Fjallraven, Rolex, Exodus Travel, Tory Burch Sport, and many others, including some that are in development that I think will come to a closure before the end of the year, are really going very well on track. And those all feed into the campaign, the fundraising campaign that we're really just getting into, where we're targeting a $20 million raise over the next 3 to 5 years. And it turns out we actually already have about $3.5 million committed just through the first few commitments to that campaign. And so that turns out to be this is the first time I've been involved in fundraising at this particular scale. And At least from where I sit, this looks like we're off to a really strong start. Many of you probably already know that we have a new book deal with Random House Publishing, where they are going to be publishing 3 new Explorers Club books. And in fact, we'll be soon meeting with an author we have selected to tackle 2 of those books. In fact, they'll be in the club here this week, doing research on those first 2 books. And those are on the history of the club as well as the archives of the club. Later, we'll work on the 3rd book, which is a children's book. And it's worth pointing out that all of these books are already fully paid for, fully sponsored. And in fact, these will represent a solid revenue opportunity for the club itself. We've also been making some great progress on the building. In addition to now having the basement cleared and all the asbestos removed, I think by the last time reported, we now have the long-range architect plans in hand. The electrical work bids are coming in, and the first floor upgrades, including an outdoor expansion of the Apollo room, are now being detailed. While there's the work on the building is a multi-year commitment, the at least initial framework and first work has begun. Many of you know that we're working very hard to professionalize a lot of the activities we do as a club to make sure that not only our in-person events, but especially our online and inter-chapter or chapter-to-member connections are as professional as possible. To help manage that, we've promoted Kevin Murphy, one of our in-house staffers, to be the new event coordinator, and backed him up with another new employee, Brooke Vejos, who will be there to help him out. And we think this will make sure that all of the myriad of events that we do, live and virtual, will be coordinated in such a way that we can really take best advantage of them and they best serve you, our membership. Of course, we also went over the treasurer's report, and despite now again having this recent 2 years of challenges, largely due to COVID and that being a real challenge to a lot of the normal ways we carry on events and raise money for the club, we're actually in pretty good standing here at the end of our fiscal 2021, which was the end of the summer. And that's been largely to a few key items. One, which is the government PPP support. We've received loans, one of which has already been forgiven, and we expect the other to be forgiven, that have helped cover for that. Plus, we did have to borrow some money from some of our reserves, but probably the primary challenge actually has been the rising costs of construction here in New York City. So any repair or restoration of things in the building those costs have actually risen. So far, all those costs have been covered by our partner Discovery. So far things are going well there, but that did represent an additional challenge. Our membership report included the approval of a long slate of new members. You can go look up online. But we also posthumously celebrated Amelia Earhart and Anne Moreau Lindbergh, and in fact went back to all of the older Apollo astronauts, many of whom's memberships had fallen out of good standing. So we brought all those people back up into good standing along with that slate of new members. And of course, if you are a member, we want you to remain a member. So please pay your dues. From our flags and honors, we also have a request for nominations for our 2021 and 2022 primary medalists. That's the Explorers Club Medal, the Explorers Medal, Sweeney Medal, and the Citation of Merit, as well as the planning has begun for our Lowell Thomas dinner, which will be based on conservation genetics. So hopefully get those awardee nominations in if you haven't thought about it already. We have a new Explorers Club chapter. The board also approved the formation of a new Middle East chapter, as well as its initial logo. And hopefully you get a chance to see it right here. But welcome to all of you from our newest chapter in the Middle East. For those of you who follow our grants programs, the grants programs are going great. And in fact, with our largest grant program, the Discovery Grants, we just passed the $1 million mark in grants given out, including 2 for this year that kicked it off, where the Discovery is adopting the Tom Sawyer ship expedition, as well as an ocean expedition. Discovery and the Explorers Club are working very closely together here to make sure that we support member expeditions the very best we can. Well, all right, that is the board update. Now let's go over to the more fireside chatty parts of the fireside chat and get to some of the questions that you all submitted. So thank you very much for those question submissions. And let me pull that document up right here and we'll get right to it. One question that came up was dues at various categories of membership. And it appeared that the person posing this question thought that the dues were similar across categories of membership. I just reconfirmed with Emerald that in fact, we actually have a widely varying set of dues for different kinds of membership, whether they're in town, out of town, whether they're a friend or a student or a full normal member. And so we can, of course, always reconsider what all the dues levels are, but we do have a highly variable set of dues right now. You can find those on the website. Of course, another question was ECAD 2022. Of course, in the board summary, I already let you all know that, yes, I'm very excited that we will hold one in person. Probably one additional thing to note on there is we do expect for everyone to have to send in their proof of vaccination well ahead of the actual event to save the time of check-in for those events. And so we've already had some people ask, does that mean, will anything else suffice? Can I show that I have had a recent negative test, that sort of thing? And that is not the current plan. The current plan is you must have been vaccinated, and we will have needed to have seen your proof of vaccination well in advance of showing up at ECAD 2022. One of the more interesting questions I was asked was, how do I think we are doing in contrast to the candidate statements I had made before becoming president, kind of my 4 pillars of the things I was hoping to work on during my time as president. And so I'd love the question. Let's actually review those pillars and I'll give you my answers. One is to focus on the fact that we're a member organization and work as much as possible through the chapters. So I think we're making initial progress on that. In fact, during a lot of the renovation that we have going on in the building right now, a big part of that is focused on how we can make sure we have high bandwidth, quality connections, better even than we're doing right here with Fireside Chats, to make sure that headquarters and chapters and members can all have a high bandwidth connection, a highly high quality, salient connection that also goes to our website. We've just launched the new website, which I think is going to have, in fact, already has a lot of new features in it that'll help members and chapters all connect more deeply with each other. Second issue was expand the current push for diversity. That's, again, we just announced the second Explorers Club 50, which was largely to cast a global net on bringing new members and highlighting explorers around the globe, which inherently means you sweep up a more diverse cast of explorers than if you kind of only look in your own backyard. And so that's just one example, but I think actually we're doing quite well on that front. Building on key partnerships, our third pillar, building on key partnerships and sponsors. Again, related to some of the initiatives we already have going on, we've in the middle of renegotiating a lot of those sponsorships and partnerships, as well as bringing on a couple of new larger sponsors. So that area of our work, I think, is also growing well. And then the final one, good governance. I think that especially if you're going into this new campaign, demonstrably improved governance or high quality governance is, I think, really important to if you're going out and asking people to support a club. It's important they believe that support will be well managed. And I think we're doing that too. And again, this goes, part of it is the revisions we put into the bylaws, including the addition of the board of trustees, but other modifications that either have already been made or that we're continuing to make. The staffing that we're doing to better professionalize a lot of the programs we're involved in. I at least, my self-report card, I would say, is doing. We're making pretty good progress. Of course, the final word goes back to you, so it'll be up to you to judge based on these results. And so, hopefully, you're already seeing some of those results. But we do have more initiatives coming online, which will continue to grow on these four pillars, even as I hopefully get a chance to roll into a second year. Another question that came up was nominations for membership in our organization. It was being pointed out that during this time of COVID, while it was relatively easy to continue to go on the website and get a membership application filled out, it was more difficult for some of the proposed members to find recommenders for their membership, which often was done. The common advice is come to some Explorers Club events, get yourself known, find yourself a recommender or two. And of course, in COVID, that was very hard. That is understood, obviously, that was a harder period. And so, the good news is we're starting to hold more face-to-face events. So anybody that had that challenge over the last 2 years, if they were unable to find the recommenders they needed, then hopefully now is a time that they could circle back and get that membership, those check marks, those boxes checked. But if they still find any difficulty with that, I know the club is aware of this and is really trying to work hard with people to make sure they get all the help they need to get their membership applications filled out appropriately. Another fascinating topic that was brought up was carbon offsets. Now, this is something that I did myself with my trip to the International Space Station, as I had secured carbon offsets. And people were asking, should the club more broadly adopt this or support this or provide to membership methods to do such things? And interestingly, in my case, I actually worked with a club member who has a business to sell carbon offsets and a project to back that up with verifiable activity. But that's interesting enough that I'll make sure we bring that up in our future board discussions and staff discussions up at the club to see what we think is the appropriate way to help members who choose to. And I would like to believe that we, as members, would pretty much all love to figure out how to ensure that our own expeditions are as carbon neutral or positive as possible. I was also asked to comment on the renovations and restorations of the clubhouse and how that might affect access to the clubhouse itself. Interestingly, of course, it was closed for COVID, and we were also closed when we were removing the asbestos from the basement. However, in this multi-year work that we now plan to have going on at the club, it will be open for most of it. There very likely will still need to be a few times that the club is closed. We'll try to make sure that those happen during the summers where we're either down to reduced hours or closed anyway. But obviously, we're going to work very hard to now keep the club open as much as possible, as normally as possible here as we're slowly emerging out of the COVID restriction. Another question came in about creating new chapters, and this one in particular was asking about a new Spanish or chapter in Spain. And of course, we just approved our chapter in the Middle East, and I wish you great luck and, of course, support any group that meets the criteria that comes up with a new chapter. So good luck, Spain. One more, really a suggestion came in about the new website, hoping that it would include the ability for each chapter to post their own news and updates for their chapter on the headquarters website. Personally, I think this is a fantastic idea. I know Kevin Murphy, who is shepherding the project of the new website, has seen this list. In fact, he he coordinated this list of questions for me. But I will absolutely take that up and discuss with him and see how, again, best we can support members and chapters with our website, which is one of our primary goals as we go forward. So anyway, I love the idea. One way or another, we'll figure out how to best integrate chapter websites, chapter information with our headquarters website as well. By the way, again, let me just say thank you to all of you who sent in questions. We will be putting up the email address for anyone who has questions, either for these fireside chats or in general. We think of this as an open door, two-way street. The only way we're going to succeed as a club is if we keep in mind that we are a member-driven organization. We are here for you. We need to hear from you. And I at least believe, and I think all the staff believes, that we succeed or fail based upon how good a job we do in your eyes. So thank you very much for letting me come to you with today's fireside chat. I look forward to hearing more of your questions and talking with you again in the future. Until then, bye-bye.